The space around Earth was busy with ships coming and going. Humans had been traveling among the stars for nearly 50 years now. They were not the oldest or most advanced species in the galaxy, but they had made their mark. Commander Olivia. Hayes stood on the bridge of the Earthship Defiant, watching the stars through the large viewing window. She was tall with short brown hair and had been in space for most of her career. The Defiant was on a routine patrol along the edge of human space. These patrols were boring, but necessary. "Commander, I'm picking up something strange," said Lieutenant William Carter from his station. Carter was young with red hair and freckles. He was the best communications officer Hayes had ever worked with. Hayes walked over to his station. "What kind of strange, Lieutenant?" "It's a signal I've never seen before. Not human and not matching any known alien patterns in our database." The bridge became quiet as everyone turned to listen. Hayes leaned over Carter's shoulder to look at his screen. "Can you clean it up?" Carter's fingers moved quickly over the controls. "Working on it now. There's a pattern. It repeats exactly the same way each time." The ship's science officer, Dr. Linda Powell, joined them. She was older than Hayes with gray streaks in her black hair. "May I?" she asked, and Carter moved aside. Dr. Powell studied the signal for several minutes. "This is fascinating. Look at these mathematical sequences. They're universal constants, the kind of math that any advanced species would recognize." "What are they saying?" Hayes asked. "It's not words exactly, but the pattern." Dr. Powell pointed to a section of the signal. "This repeating decay and spike, it's a distress pattern. Someone is calling for help." Hayes straightened up. "You're sure?" "Absolutely. This is a deliberate message designed to be understood by any spacefaring species." Hayes returned to her command chair and pressed a button. "Bridge to Admiral Miller." The screen at the front of the bridge lit up, showing the face of Admiral Jason Miller. He was in his 60s with a gray beard and serious eyes. "Commander Hayes." "Report." "Sir, we've picked up what appears to be a distress signal from an unknown source. Dr. Powell confirms it's designed to be understood across species barriers." Miller frowned. "Location?" "It's coming from Sector 47, about 3 light-years beyond the Arcturus outpost. That's outside Galactic Confederacy space, sir." The Galactic Confederacy was the alliance of 17 alien species that had been exploring space long before humans. They were careful and slow in their decisions, which often frustrated the more action-oriented humans. "Have you alerted the Confederacy Council?" Miller asked. "Not yet, sir. We just confirmed the signal." Miller nodded. "Send them the data immediately, but also prepare a response fleet. The Defiant will lead with the cruisers Relentless and Dauntless as support." Hayes was surprised. "Sir, the Confederacy might not approve of a military response without their consultation. When someone screams for help, you don't form a committee, Commander," Miller said firmly. "You respond. The Confederacy can catch up when they're ready." "Yes, sir," Hayes said with a small smile. This was why she respected Miller. He made choices based on what was right, not what was politically convenient. After the call ended, Hayes turned to her crew. "You heard the Admiral. Lieutenant Carter, send everything we have to Confederacy headquarters. Dr. Powell, keep analyzing that signal. See if you can get more details. Lieutenant Garcia, set course for the signal origin." Garcia, a quiet man with dark eyes and a steady hand, nodded. "Course plotted, Commander. We can be there in 26 hours at maximum speed. Make it happen," Hayes ordered. The response from the Confederacy came 8 hours later as the Defiant traveled through faster-than-light space. Hayes read it in her private quarters. "Commander Hayes," the message began. "The Confederacy Council acknowledges receipt of the unknown signal data. We are convening an emergency session to discuss appropriate action. Please maintain your position and take no further action until the Council reaches consensus. Estimated time to decision, 3 to 5 days." Hayes sighed and contacted Admiral Miller again. "I expected this," Miller said after hearing about the message. "The Confederacy operates on consensus. They won't act until all 17 species agree. Sir, they've specifically ordered us to stop." Miller shook his head. They've requested we stop. There's a difference. We're not actually under their command. What should I do? Hayes asked. Continue your mission, Commander. Whoever sent that. Distress call might not have 3 to 5 days. Within 12 hours, the Defiant was joined by the Relentless and the Dauntless. Captain Eric Donnelly of the Relentless contacted Hayes as soon as they arrived. Commander, the Confederacy representatives are not happy about this mission, Donnelly said. His round face looked concerned. I know. They've sent 3 more messages asking us to turn back, Hayes replied. Admiral Miller is taking heat from Earth government too. Some officials are worried about damaging our relationship with the Confederacy. Hayes frowned. And what do you think, Captain? Donnelly's expression became determined. I think if my ship was in trouble, I'd want whoever heard my call to come running, not debate it for a week. Exactly, Hayes said with a nod. When they were 6 hours from the signal source, a Confederacy diplomatic vessel appeared alongside them. The alien representative, a tall being with delicate features and silver skin named Ambassador Zelian, requested to come aboard the Defiant. Hayes met the ambassador in the ship's conference room. Zelian moved with fluid grace, settling into a specially designed chair. Commander Hayes, I must formally request that you abort this mission, Zelian said. The translator made the alien's voice sound musical. May I ask why, Ambassador? The signal comes from an uncharted region. We have no data on who might have sent it or what dangers might await. The Council believes proper study and preparation are necessary before any contact. Hayes looked the ambassador in the eyes. With respect, Ambassador, someone out there needs help now. Every hour we delay could mean lives lost. Humans are remarkably... Zelian paused, searching for the right word. Impulsive. You act before you have all information. Sometimes waiting for all the information means you're too late to help, Hayes replied. Zelian's skin shimmered with colors, showing emotion. This is why the Confederacy finds humans both fascinating and concerning. Your species takes risks that ours would never consider. Will you try to stop us? Hayes asked directly. After a moment, Zelian shook their head. No. The Council does not authorize interference. I will remain on board as an observer only. When Zelian left, Hayes returned to the bridge. Everyone looked at her expectantly. We continue as planned, she said. In 6 hours, we'll find out who sent that call, and we'll do whatever we can to help them. As the 3 human ships raced toward the unknown, the crew of the Defiant felt a mix of excitement and fear. They might be flying into danger, but they all knew one thing for certain. When someone asked for help, humans answered. It was simply who they were. The 3 human ships exited faster than light travel near a yellow star. Commander Hayes stood on the bridge of the Defiant, staring at the main screen. The star system they had entered had 9 planets. One of them, the third from the star, glowed blue and green like Earth. Life signs? Hayes asked. Lieutenant Maria Diaz, the ship's sensor officer, worked quickly at her station. Confirming now, Commander. The third planet shows clear signs of civilization, cities, technology, but also massive damage. There are huge burn marks on the surface visible even from orbit. The distress signal is coming from the largest continent in the northern hemisphere, Carter added. Hayes turned to Ambassador Zelian, who stood silently observing. Any ideas about who lives here? The silver-skinned alien seemed troubled. This system is not in our records. Whatever civilization exists here, they were unknown to the Confederacy. Or you just hadn't gotten around to meeting them yet, Hayes said. Zelian's skin rippled with colors. Perhaps. Our expansion is methodical. Commander, Carter interrupted. We're getting a new signal. It's a direct communication attempt. Put it on screen, Hayes ordered. The main view screen flickered, then showed an alien face. It had large, compound eyes that shimmered with a rainbow of colors. Its head was covered in fine, hair-like structures, and it had mandibles instead of a mouth. The face was framed by what looked like an iridescent exoskeleton. The alien spoke, making clicking and humming sounds that the ship's computer couldn't translate. Carter, get the translation matrix working. Hayes said. Dr. Powell, can you help? Together, the communications officer and science officer began feeding the alien language into the ship's computer. It took several minutes, during which the alien continued to speak, its large eyes showing what Hayes thought might be desperation. Finally, rough translations began to appear on screen. Unknown ships. Help. They return soon. Please. Hayes stepped forward. My name is Commander Olivia Hayes of the Earth Alliance vessel Defiant. We received your distress call and came to help. Who are you and what's happening here? The alien's mandibles moved excitedly. The translation came through broken but understandable. You came? When signal sent, no hope of answer. I am first speaker Klvix of Virixi people. Our world dies. The harvesters came. They take, they destroy. Few of us remain. Ambassador Zelian moved forward, now intensely interested. Harvesters? Can you describe them? First speaker Klvix's compound eyes shifted to Zelian. Large ships, black like space itself. They came without warning. They take our resources, our people. 3 cycles ago they came. They will return soon. To finish. Hayes turned to her crew. Diaz, full sensor sweep of the system, look for any ships that aren't ours. Captain Donnelly and Commander Alvarez are requesting instructions, Carter said, referring to the captains of the Relentless and Dauntless. Tell them to maintain orbit and be ready for anything, Hayes replied. She turned back to the screen. First speaker, we're here to help. Can we send a team to your location? Klvix's fine hairs seemed to vibrate with emotion. Yes, come. Little time remains. Hayes selected a landing team, including herself, Dr. Powell, and Security Chief Ben Riley. Ambassador Zelian insisted on coming too. If these harvesters are a threat unknown to the Confederacy, I must learn all I can, the alien explained. The shuttle landed in what had once been a large plaza in the Virixi capital city. Buildings made of a crystal-like material surrounded them, many of them damaged or destroyed. The sky had a strange burnt orange color. First speaker Klvix met them personally, accompanied by several other Virixi. Up close, the aliens were about the same height as humans, with 4 arms and 2 legs. Their entire bodies were covered in the same iridescent exoskeleton as their faces. You are different from us, Klvix said, studying the humans with obvious curiosity. We are, Hayes agreed. We come from a planet called Earth, very far from here. How did you hear our call? We sent it with hope but no expectation. We were on patrol at the edge of our territory, Hayes explained. Your signal was mathematical, universal. We understood it was a call for help. And you came immediately, Klvix said. It wasn't a question. Why? Hayes was confused by the question. Because you needed help. That's what humans do. Zelian stepped forward. My species is part of a galactic confederacy. We would have eventually investigated your signal. After proper procedures were followed, the Virixi turned all their attention to Zelian. Eventually, our people are dying now. The harvesters take everything. Tell us about these harvesters, Hayes said, steering the conversation back to the immediate threat. Klvix led them to a building that seemed to be a command center. Inside, other Virixi worked at control panels. On a large screen, they showed recordings of the attack. The human team watched in horror as massive black ships appeared in orbit around the Virixi homeworld. Smaller craft descended to the surface, harvesting resources and capturing Virixi by the thousands. They came without warning, Klvix explained. We had only achieved space travel 30 cycles ago. We had visited our nearby moons and sent probes to other planets in our system. Then the harvesters arrived. What do they want? Dr. Powell asked. Everything. Minerals from our planet. Plants. Animals. People. They take and they destroy. And you have no idea who they are? Hayes asked. No communication? They sent one message when they first arrived. Klvix activated another recording. A deep rumbling. Voice spoke words that chilled Hayes to her core. Your resources are now ours. Resistance is futile. You exist to be harvested. Ambassador Zelian's silver skin had turned almost white. This is... Unprecedented. The Confederacy has never encountered such aggression. Lucky you, Hayes said dryly. She turned back to Kulvix. How many of your people are left? Perhaps 1 million, from a population of billions. The alien's voice held deep sorrow. They will return soon to take the rest. Hayes activated her communicator. Hayes to Defiant. Lieutenant Diaz, any sign of approaching ships? Nothing yet, Commander. Wait. There was a pause. Long-range sensors are picking up something at the edge of the system. 3 large objects moving toward the planet. Hayes looked at Kulvix. The harvesters? The alien's entire body seemed to droop. Yes. They have returned. It is the end. Not if we have anything to say about it, Hayes replied firmly. She turned to her team. We're returning to the ship immediately. To Kulvix, she said, First speaker, gather your remaining ships and fighters. We're going to fight. Why would you fight for us? Kulvix asked, seemingly bewildered. You know nothing of our people. We know you asked for help, Hayes said simply. That's enough for us. As they rushed back to the shuttle, Ambassador Zelian caught Hayes' arm. Commander, this is madness. We are 3 ships against an unknown enemy that has decimated an entire civilization. Hayes looked the ambassador directly in the eyes. Then call your Confederacy. Tell them to send help. But we're not waiting, and we're not running. As their shuttle lifted off, Hayes saw thousands of Virixi looking up at them. Some were raising their forearms in what might have been a salute or a prayer. Carter, she said into her communicator, tell Donnelly and Alvarez to prepare for battle. We've got company coming and they're not friendly. Commander Hayes returned to the Defiant and went straight to the bridge. The crew was busy preparing for battle. Status report, she ordered. Lieutenant Diaz looked up from her sensor station. 3 large ships are approaching, Commander. They will reach our position in 40 minutes. What do we know about them? They're massive. Each one is at least 5 times larger than our ships. Their outer hulls appear to be made of an unusual metal that absorbs our scanning beams. Hayes nodded. Lieutenant Carter, open a channel to Captain Donnelly and Commander Alvarez. The faces of the other ship captains appeared on screen. Donnelly was a veteran with a scar across his cheek. Alvarez was younger, with intense eyes. The harvesters will be here soon, Hayes told them. We need a battle plan. What are we facing? Alvarez asked. Hayes shared what they had learned from the Virixi. These harvesters have destroyed most of their civilization. They take resources and people, then move on. They've never been stopped before. First time for everything, Donnelly said with a grim smile. The Virixi have some ships left, Hayes continued. Not many, but they'll fight with us. We need to coordinate. They spent the next 30 minutes planning their strategy. The Virixi ships were small but fast. They would act as a distraction while the human ships targeted what they hoped were vital systems on the harvester vessels. Ambassador. Zelian watched these preparations with growing concern. Commander Hayes, I must officially protest this action. You are risking your ships and crews against an unknown enemy that has clearly demonstrated superior firepower. Hayes looked at the alien diplomat. Noted, Ambassador. But we're not leaving. These people to die. The Confederacy would handle this differently, Zelian insisted. Yes, Hayes agreed. You'd study and debate while an entire species was wiped out. That's not the human way. Lieutenant Diaz interrupted. Commander, the harvester ships have entered weapons range. Battle stations, Hayes ordered. All hands prepare for combat. The 3 harvester ships were black, with surfaces that seemed to swallow light rather than reflect it. They were shaped like arrowheads with jagged edges and no visible windows or openings. They're scanning us, Carter reported. Let them look, Hayes said. Weapons ready? All systems online, confirmed Riley from the tactical station. A deep, rumbling voice suddenly came through the ship's communication system. Unknown vessels. You protect what is ours to harvest. Leave or be destroyed. Hayes leaned forward in her chair. This is Commander Olivia Hayes of the Earth Alliance. The Varixi are not yours to harvest. Leave this system immediately or face the consequences. There was a pause before the voice responded. Your species is unknown to us. You have no value in this matter. Final warning. Open fire, Hayes ordered. The Defiant and the other human ships launched their attack. Missiles and energy beams struck the harvester vessels, creating explosions against their dark hulls. The Varixi ships darted between the larger vessels, firing their own weapons. At first, the attack seemed effective. The human weapons were leaving marks on the harvester ships. But then, the harvesters responded. Beams of green energy shot out from hidden weapons ports. One hit a Varixi ship, cutting it in half. Another struck the Relentless, causing the cruiser to shake violently. Donnelly reports shield damage, Carter called out. They're holding for now. Hayes gripped the arms of her command chair. Target their weapon ports, concentrate fire. The battle grew more intense. The Defiant rocked as it was hit by harvester weapons. Warning lights flashed on the bridge. Shields at 60%, Riley reported. Ambassador Zelian stood in a corner of the bridge, watching with wide eyes. You cannot win this fight, Commander. Maybe not, but we can sure make them pay, Hayes replied. She turned to her tactical officer. Riley, prepare a boarding party. Everyone on the bridge stared at her. A boarding party? Riley repeated. Commander, with all due respect, that's suicide. We're not making enough damage from the outside, Hayes explained. We need to hit them from within. She pointed to the main screen. Look at how their hull absorbs our weapons. It's designed to protect against external attacks. But what about inside? The bridge was silent as her crew considered this. I'll lead the team myself, Hayes said. No, Commander, Riley said firmly. The captain does not leave the ship during battle. I'll lead the team. Before Hayes could argue, Lieutenant Nathan Phillips spoke up from his station at the helm. Sir, I flew fighter ships before serving on the Defiant. I'm the best pilot for this mission. Hayes considered this, then nodded. All right, Phillips, take a shuttle. Riley, give him your best security people. Get inside one of those ships and find their weak points. As Riley and Phillips left the bridge to prepare, Ambassador Zelian approached. Hayes. This plan is extremely risky. Yes, Hayes agreed. But sometimes you have to take risks to save lives. 20 minutes later, a small shuttle launched from the Defiant. Lieutenant Phillips piloted it skillfully, avoiding the green energy beams from the harvester ships. 5 security officers were with him. Phillips to Defiant, his voice came over. The comm system. We're approaching the nearest harvester. No visible entry points. Going to have to make our own. Hayes watched on the main screen as the shuttle flew directly at the largest harvester ship. Phillips fired the shuttle's weapons at one spot again and again. It's working, Phillips reported. We're making a dent. Suddenly, the shuttle was hit by a glancing blow from a harvester weapon. It spun out of control. Phillips, Hayes called. Report. Engines damaged, Phillips replied, his voice strained. Can't maintain control. Wait, this might work. To everyone's horror and amazement, Phillips directed his damaged shuttle straight into the weakened section of the harvesters. Oh, the shuttle crashed through, disappearing inside the massive alien ship. For a moment, there was silence on the bridge. Then Phillips's voice came through, broken and static-filled. We're inside. Shuttle's destroyed, but we're alive. This place, is he strange? Like a giant factory, and we found their weakness. What is it? Hayes asked eagerly. They're heavily armored outside but fragile within, Phillips said. Their internal systems are exposed. No protection at all. It's like they never expected anyone to get inside. Can you disable them? Already working on it. We've found what looks like a power node. If we can overload it. The transmission cut off suddenly. Hayes looked at the main screen with worry. Phillips? Lieutenant Phillips, respond. For several long moments, there was no answer. Then, the harvester ship where Phillips had crashed began to show signs of internal explosions. Lights flickered across its surface, and parts of its hull bulged outward. They did it, Hayes whispered. Carter turned from his station. Commander, I'm picking up a transmission from Lieutenant Phillips. Put it through. Phillips's voice was weak. Commander, we found their central control node. It's unguarded. They never expected enemies inside. We're going to destroy it, but we won't make it out. Hayes closed her eyes briefly. Phillips, you've done enough. Try to find an escape pod or something. No time, Commander. Phillips replied calmly. More harvesters will come if we don't end this now. Tell Earth. Tell them we did what humans do. We helped. The transmission ended. Moments later, the largest harvester ship exploded from within, breaking into massive chunks that drifted through space. Target the other harvesters, Hayes ordered, her voice steady despite her grief. Phillips showed us the way. We need to get inside them. The battle had changed. Now they had a strategy. The explosion of the first harvester ship changed everything. Debris floated through space, and the other two harvester vessels seemed to pause, as if surprised. They didn't expect this, Hayes said, watching the main screen. They've never been beaten before. She quickly contacted Captain Donnelly and Commander Alvarez. We need to get inside the other ships. That's where they're vulnerable. How? Alvarez asked. We can't sacrifice more shuttles and crews. We don't have to, Donnelly said. We have missiles. If we target the same spot repeatedly, we might break through their hulls. Do it, Hayes ordered, and tell the Verixi ships to focus fire on those same points. The battle resumed with renewed energy. The human ships and their Verixi allies concentrated all weapons on specific points of the harvester vessels, hammering away at their thick outer armor. On the bridge of the Defiant, Ambassador Zelian watched with growing amazement. Your strategy, and it's working. Phillips gave his life to show us how, Hayes replied. We won't waste his sacrifice. After 20 minutes of concentrated fire, they broke through the hull of the second harvester ship. Hayes ordered their most powerful missiles fired into the breach. The results were spectacular. Internal explosions rippled through the massive ship until it broke apart, just like the first one. The third and final harvester tried to retreat. It turned away from the planet and began to accelerate. They're running, Carter announced. Not today, Hayes said firmly. Pursuit course. They don't get to leave to harvest someone else. The Defiant, along with the Relentless and the remaining Verixi ships, chased after the fleeing harvester. The Dauntless had been badly damaged and couldn't join the pursuit. We're gaining on them, Diaz reported from her station. All power to weapons, Hayes ordered. Let's finish this. They caught up to the harvester ship at the edge of the system. Again, they focused their fire on one spot until they broke through. This time, the Verixi delivered the final blow. Their fastest ship carried an explosive device directly into the breach, its pilot sacrificing himself just as Phillips had done. The third harvester exploded, leaving nothing but scattered debris. A cheer went up on the bridge of the Defiant. Hayes allowed herself a small smile before remembering the cost. Lieutenant Carter, get me a casualty report. The celebration quieted as they took stock of their losses. 27 crew members from the Defiant were dead, including Lieutenant Phillips and his boarding team. The Relentless had lost 35 people. The Dauntless, which had taken the heaviest hits, had lost over 50, and the Verixi had sacrificed 12 ships with their crews. It was a high price, Hayes said quietly, but worth it to save the Verixi civilization. Ambassador Zelian approached her. The silver-skinned alien's usual calm had been replaced by visible emotion. Commander Hayes, I must admit that I was wrong. Your human approach was effective when our Confederacy protocols would have led to disaster. Different species, different ways of thinking, Hayes replied, not unkindly. We humans tend to act first and think later. Sometimes it gets us into trouble, sometimes it works out. The Confederacy Council needs to know about these harvesters, Zelian said. If they attacked the Verixi, they may attack others. Agreed. We should return to the planet and speak with First Speaker Kilvix. The Verixi might have information that could help identify where the harvesters came from. When they returned to orbit around the Verixi homeworld, they found the remaining population celebrating. First speaker Kulvix requested to come aboard, the Defiant. The insectoid alien arrived with several others. Their compound eyes seemed to sparkle with emotions that humans couldn't read, but their body language showed excitement and gratitude. "You have saved our species," Kulvix said, bowing deeply to Hayes. "The harvesters have troubled us for 3 cycles. No one answered our calls for help until you came." "We're glad we could help," Hayes replied. "But we need to know more about these harvesters. Where did they come from? Have you gathered any information about them during these 3 cycles?" Kulvix's antennae twitched. "We have collected some data. They came from the direction of the galactic rim, beyond known space. Our scientists believe they may be from another galaxy entirely." This news shocked both Hayes and Ambassador Zelian. "Another galaxy?" Zelian repeated. "That's troubling. The Confederacy has never encountered extragalactic beings before. And they harvest resources and people," Hayes added. "The question is, how many worlds have they destroyed before finding the Verixi? And are there more of them coming?" First speaker Kulvix led them to a room where Verixi scientists displayed their findings. "We captured some of their technology during previous attacks. We believe they use the resources they take to build more ships. And the people they capture..." The alien hesitated. "What happens to them?" Hayes asked, though she feared the answer. "We found evidence that they are used for labor and..." Kulvix's voice became softer. "And as a food source." Hayes felt sick. Ambassador Zelian's skin turned pale. "This is a threat to all intelligent life in our galaxy," Zelian said. "The Confederacy must be informed immediately." 3 days later, a Confederacy diplomatic vessel arrived, carrying representatives from several member species. They were greeted by a joint delegation of humans and Verixi. The head of the Confederacy delegation, a tall being with 4 arms similar to but distinct from the Verixi, addressed Hayes formally. "Commander, the Council has reviewed Ambassador Zelian's preliminary report. We are concerned by these events." "Concerned?" Hayes repeated. "These harvesters nearly wiped out an entire civilization. They would have succeeded if we hadn't intervened." "Yes," the alien agreed. "And the Council wishes to express gratitude for your actions. However, we are troubled by the way humans take such matters into their own hands. There are protocols." "Protocols wouldn't have saved the Verixi," Hayes interrupted. "Sometimes immediate action is needed." First speaker Kulvix stepped forward. "The humans answered when no one else did. They fought for us without knowing us. They sacrificed their lives for our people. We will always stand with them." The Confederacy representative seemed taken aback. "The Council has decided to offer the Verixi protection. We can relocate your remaining population to worlds within Confederacy space." To everyone's surprise, Kulvix declined. "We thank the Confederacy for this offer, but we choose to remain allied with the humans. They alone answered our call for help." As the meeting continued, Hayes found herself wondering what this meant for the future. The harvesters were a new threat that neither humans nor the Confederacy had faced before, and the Verixi had chosen to align themselves with humanity rather than join the established galactic community. Something was changing in the galaxy, and humanity, despite being one of the youngest spacefaring species, was suddenly at the center of it. 6 months passed after the battle with the harvesters. The Verixi homeworld was slowly healing. With help from human scientists and engineers, they had begun to rebuild their cities and restore their damaged environment. Commander Hayes had been promoted to admiral for her actions. She now stood in a large meeting hall on the Confederacy Central World, preparing to address the full Galactic Council. It was the first time a human had been invited to speak to all 17 member species. At once, Admiral Miller stood beside her, his gray beard now a little longer. "Nervous?" he asked quietly. Hayes smiled. "A little. It's not every day you get to tell 17 advanced alien species that they're doing things wrong." "Just speak the truth, Admiral," Miller advised. "That's all we can do." The meeting hall was impressive. Shaped like a huge bowl, it had sections for each member species, designed to accommodate their different body types and environmental needs. The human section was new, smaller than the others. Ambassador Zelian approached them. Over the past months, the silver-skinned alien had become something of a friend to Hayes. "They are ready for you, Admiral Hayes." Hayes nodded and walked to the center of the hall. All eyes, some with multiple pairs, some with compound structures like the Virixi, turned to watch her. The head of the council, a tall being with blue skin and 4 arms, spoke first. "Admiral Olivia Hayes of Earth, you have been invited to address this council regarding the threat known as the Harvesters and the new alliance between humans and the Virixi." Hayes took a deep breath and began. "Thank you for this opportunity. Humanity is young compared to your species. We have been traveling among the stars for less than a century, while many of you have been doing so for thousands of years." She paused, looking around the room. "We are impulsive. We take risks you find unnecessary. But when we heard a cry for help from the Virixi, we didn't calculate the political advantages or assess whether the endangered species had anything to offer us. We simply responded, because that's what humans do." The council chamber was silent. Hayes continued, "Since the battle at the Virixi homeworld, we have been working with their scientists to study the harvester technology we recovered. What we found is disturbing." She activated a holographic display showing images and data. "The harvesters have systematically eliminated dozens of emerging intelligent species over the past several centuries. They operate primarily in the spaces between your established territories, the buffer zones where the Confederacy's expansion hasn't yet reached." Murmurs spread through the chamber. The council leader looked troubled. "This is most concerning. Why have we never detected these activities?" "Because you move too slowly," Hayes said bluntly. "By the time your exploration teams would have reached these worlds, the harvesters had already come and gone, leaving nothing but empty planets." Ambassador Zelian stepped forward. "Admiral Hayes speaks the truth. The Confederacy's careful, methodical approach to expansion has inadvertently created safe zones for predators like the harvesters to operate." First Speaker Kulvix, who had also been invited to the meeting, added, "My people would be extinct now if we had waited for Confederacy protocols to be followed. The humans saved us because they acted immediately." The council leader's 4 hands moved in a gesture that might have been discomfort. "What are you suggesting, Admiral Hayes? That we abandon our careful procedures?" "No," Hayes replied. "Your methodical approach has value. It has kept peace among your 17 species for centuries. But the galaxy is not as safe as you believed. And it never will be if advanced civilizations choose safety over solidarity." She looked around the chamber again. "I propose a new approach. Let the Confederacy continue its careful expansion and diplomatic missions. But when urgent threats emerge, when someone somewhere calls for help, humanity can respond first." The chamber erupted in discussion. Some council members seemed offended by the suggestion that humans should be given special status. Others appeared intrigued. After the noise died down, the council leader asked, "Why should humanity be trusted with this responsibility?" Admiral Miller stepped forward to stand beside Hayes. "Because it's in our nature to help first and ask questions later. Sometimes that's a weakness. But sometimes, as with the Virixi, it's exactly what's needed. And we've proven ourselves," Hayes added. "We sacrificed our own people to save a species we had just met." The debate continued for hours. Finally, the council called for a vote. To Hayes' surprise, 14 of the 17 member species voted in favor of creating what they called the Rapid Response Protocol, with humanity appointed to lead it. After the meeting, Hayes and Miller walked with Ambassador Zelian and First Speaker Kulvix through the gardens outside the council chamber. "I didn't expect them to agree," Hayes admitted. "The evidence about the harvesters was compelling," Zelian said, "and frankly, many council members were impressed by humanity's actions. Few of our species would risk themselves for strangers as you did." Kulvix's compound eyes caught the light. "My people will never forget what humans did for us. We were dying alone in the dark and you came running when you heard our cry." Miller smiled. "That's just who we are. Sometimes it gets us into trouble. And sometimes it saves civilizations," Zelian added. Back on the Defiant, which was now Hayes's flagship, she stood in her new admiral's quarters looking at the pictures of those who had been lost in the battle. Lieutenant Phillips was there, along with all the others who had sacrificed themselves. Her communications officer, now Lieutenant Commander Carter, called on the intercom. "Admiral, we're receiving a distress call from a mining colony in Sector A. 87. They're reporting attacks by unknown ships with unusual technology." Hayes felt a chill. "More harvesters?" "Unclear, ma'am. But they're asking for immediate help." Hayes didn't hesitate. "Set course for Sector 87, maximum speed, and inform the Virixi ships in our fleet." As the Defiant prepared to jump to faster-than-light speed, Hayes looked once more at the pictures of the fallen. "We're not the most advanced species," she said quietly to herself. "Probably not the wisest either. But we're the ones who get angry enough to act when others suffer. And sometimes, that's exactly what the universe needs." The Defiant and its companion ships, human and Virixi working together, disappeared into the depths of space. They didn't know what they would find at the mining colony. They didn't know if they would all return. But they did know that someone had called for help, and humans always answered. From that day forward, across the galaxy, when disaster struck, when new threats emerged, when someone somewhere screamed into the void for help, it would be human ships that arrived first, carrying the fury and compassion that made humanity unique among the stars. The Galactic Confederacy would continue its measured expansion and diplomatic missions. But a new alliance was forming alongside it, what would eventually be known as the Human Protection Accord, an alliance of civilizations who pledged to respond immediately to any distress call, anywhere in the galaxy. It began with one distress call, and the simple fact that only the furious humans had responded to the call for help.